Well, we have a short panel, so I want to drill right down into it. Brad, you work at LinkedIn. Some people may think of LinkedIn as being more of a direct search company. I want to connect with you. I type your name into a search box and click connect. You also have a discovery layer, though. So what does social discovery mean at LinkedIn?
So social discovery at LinkedIn, there definitely is a strong navigational use case. Like I just met you at a conference, I want to connect with you. We've also found that our users have a high propensity to just to view recommendations. And so along the lines of a lot of the themes we've heard today, our People You May Know product, which Alan referenced earlier, is one of our largest drivers of invitations member to member on LinkedIn. And that's purely an algorithmic-based product that surfaces people close to you in your network that we feel you should connect with based on the data that we're gathering. Another product that's been around for about a year now is our Jobs You May Be Interested In product, which is a jobs discovery product. And what's interesting there is we see a lot of users come in that are not active job seekers. They're actually passive job seekers, but we've sort of given them this carrot of, okay, here are 50 jobs you may be interested in based on, again, sort of the secret sauce that's happening in the background. And it's amazing the levels of engagement that you see, people willing to process and sort of consume, lots and lots of recommendations, click through, maybe apply, even from passive job seekers. So there definitely is a very strong side of the house, not just on navigational use cases.
You and I were talking the other day about what's different in social discovery today than it was maybe 5 years ago. You guys have been in this game for a long time, and the first words out of your mouth was data. Talk to me about what data means for your product and why it's becoming a bigger focus for you guys at LinkedIn.
Yeah, so if you don't follow the big data trends very closely, like we are every month pushing the envelope in terms of the amount of data being gathered and the amount of data that companies like LinkedIn are able to process. So just to put it into perspective, at LinkedIn, we are processing, just for the People You May Know algorithm, processing about the equivalent of the Library of Congress every night. Just to generate the recommendations for all of our users. So that sort of thing would have been absolutely unheard of 5 years ago. So advances in technologies like Hadoop and hardware advances as well as a lot of incremental improvements in machine learning models. Those are all things that are absolutely pivotal to the products that we're developing in the space, and just weren't around 5 years ago, or we're in a very nascent stage.
Right. You also mentioned how competitive it is to find people who are good at big data. If you're a startup out here and you're looking to do some of this big data processing within your apps, is that possible, or do you have to grow to an enormous scale before you can start tackling these problems?
So yeah, data scientist is sort of the title du jour right now. And just about every computer science program in the country has a group that focuses on machine learning algorithms, and they're just not producing, even globally, we're not producing enough graduates that understand this space really well. So it's an incredibly competitive market within an already extremely competitive market for engineers. So I would say for a small startup, like, you're going to have to do some grassroots sort of guerrilla recruiting to go out and find one of these great data scientists, really make them fall in love with your idea and the product that you're trying to build, and sort of keep them away from the big guys, I guess.
Sure. So we mentioned data as one way that building social discovery products might be different than it was 5 years ago. Are there other things that you're seeing, or as you go about building products, or as you look at other companies that are building social discovery experiences, are there any trends that you would highlight, new features that you're seeing? Are we thinking about social discovery in different ways as you build new features?
So there's definitely social discovery is becoming increasingly more social as a function of the amount of liquidity of social gestures that are being put out there onto the web, not just on LinkedIn, but people following each other, retweeting each other, sharing content, things like news readers. So the more of these social gestures that are being produced, the more social this sense of discovery becomes. And again, this is a trend that's only increasing over time, and it plays back into the data problem, or the data conundrum. It's like we have mountains and mountains of data that we have to extract signal from, and that mountain is only growing in size year over year. So very interesting space to be in. Yeah.
How satisfied are you with the signals that you get out of it? Like when you think about what you want your products to look like and what you're getting out of these machine algorithms that you're building, do you feel like you're there, or are there things that are just endlessly frustrating to you?
So it's, I would say, especially on the machine learning side, a 1% improvement in a machine learning model or machine learning based model like People You May Know is considered like a grand slam. So it's a fairly mature field from a computer science perspective. People write dissertations just on like getting a 1%, squeezing 1% more juice out of the orange. So I would say that we are continuing to push the ball forward in a very meaningful way, but just very incrementally. And the compound effect of a 1% improvement week over week over week is what's going to get us to, in many cases, like 100% improvements year over year.
Right. All right. Not strictly a social discovery question, but on behalf of other LinkedIn users, I'd like to know, what's the deal with people that just send you requests to connect that you've never talked to or spoken to ever before? Have you guys studied this from a data perspective? Who are these people and what can we do about them, right?
So I personally, we get this question a lot, just personally. I think everyone on LinkedIn has sort of developed their own sort of litmus test for whether or not I should connect with you. So just to tell you what mine is, I call it the cocktail party test. If you walked up to me at a cocktail party and I'm standing there with a few friends and my boss, would I know you well enough and would I think highly enough of you to make it that introduction, standing there all with a drink in our hand? There are definitely people on all of these platforms that have a much lower bar, and those are probably some of the people that you're referring to. We also hear stories about very high level, very senior people at blue chip companies that have an extremely high bar. Like they don't even necessarily connect with people outside of their immediate organization because of potential implications that others might read into that. So it's really it's up to the individual. If you are getting what you might consider to be spam, there are places in the product where we allow you to take action against that. But other than that, it's really it's up to you. So.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about privacy. As we started off the discussion today, I mentioned that users' expectations of privacy are continually shifting, which could make it difficult to build products. You guys caught some flack yesterday for your calendars feature, storing meeting notes on your servers. I wonder from a product perspective, if you can talk to us a little bit about how that happens. Is that a case where you misjudged your users' expectations? And kind of what lessons are you learning as that's all unfolded?
So sorry to disappoint. I don't have the specifics, and I just have to refer you back to the standard channels in terms of that specific instance. Speaking broadly, we are extremely cognizant of the trusted relationship with our users, and I'm sure that we will take the correct action there.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, is it difficult to build products where you do have access to user data and not know exactly how a large group of users might feel about every decision that you're making? Or, if you're giving advice to startups out there that might be building products where they are going to take sensitive data, like when people's next meetings are and, what notes they may have about them, how do you, what are some of the best practices that you see there?
Yeah, so we definitely we take that extremely seriously, and but it is a fine line to walk in all situations. Like there is an opt-in for installing the app and that sort of thing. But I can't speak too much more about it beyond that. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, then let's move to talking about. Or let's move to some Twitter questions. Fantastic. This is sort of a broad one. You might interpret it different ways. A Twitter user wants to know, how does LinkedIn maintain authenticity while connecting?
So I think that's actually a really interesting question. So I would say that the nature of the LinkedIn's network is self-reinforcing and sort of self-validating in many senses. We've actually seen several fairly high-profile news stories that have broken around inaccuracies in people's backgrounds where that inaccuracy was not actually present on their LinkedIn profile. And so it's very interesting to see when someone puts themselves out there on the net for anyone to sort of validate and comment on. There tends to be a higher level of authenticity than you would expect on other platforms. So in terms of the actual sending the invitation, people are going to use that for alternate means other than just connecting with you. But I would say that's a very, very small percentage of the overall activity on LinkedIn. Extremely small.
This question might be related. Someone wants to know, why does LinkedIn not have a blocking feature?
A blocking feature. So we have an ignore feature. We do. I'm not sure what you mean by blocking.
Well, why don't you? So if I ignore somebody on LinkedIn, what does that mean? Because does that mean they can't send me another request to connect?
That's right. You've basically, yes, you have ignored them from future communications. Yeah.
Right. We're winding down. It's kind of a short panel, but Brad, I wanted to ask if there are just sort of any other best practices or any other companies in this space that you look to that you think are doing a really good job at social discovery.
Yeah. So I think. So just personally, I've been really impressed with Pinterest lately, and I think just in terms of there's this sort of. There are really four dimensions to the way that I think about building great discovery products. There's sort of the inward facing, like what do we know about the user, their profile, their demographic, what they're actually doing. And then there's the outward facing piece of that, which is how are they interacting with other people and other people's stuff. Then there's the network component, which is what are all of the other people close to that person doing. And then there's sort of the inverse network, which is how is that person's network interacting with them. And I think all of these are great signals to use to build a discovery product. I feel it seems like Pinterest is sort of digging into a few of these in interesting ways, and it's sort of a mix of the machine learned sort of all of the secret sauce as well as the wisdom of the crowd and sort of social curation that's happening, which lends itself to a very enriching exploratory experience. So.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, that's our time. Brad Mooney, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Round of applause for Brad.